So could they take a receiver? I mean, I guess because of Dobson and Tompkins, but you know they also have LaFell. If they take a receiver, I don't expect it to be early. This is a very, very deep draft for receiver, and I think there's a guy very talented, Jordan Matthews from Vanderbilt. I think he has the talent in some drafts that aren't as strong receiver-wise. He could be a first or second round pick. But in this draft, so many other receivers. I think he might be able to fall to round 4. I think the Patriots see a guy like that on their board in round 4. They don't pass him up. You know, they stick to the board. And so I could see them taking a receiver if he falls, but I don't really consider that a position of need for the Patriots just because of the mixture of quality and quantity they have. They have a lot of guys there. It's not a position they're low on bodies. You know, Edelman, Amendola, LaFell, Tompkins, Dobson, you know, Slater. And quality, it's not huge quality. Like, they don't have, you know, they don't have Randy Moss anymore or Deion Branch. But they have solid guys. It's not a position where they don't have anyone of starter quality. So I don't think it's that big a need for them. And tackle, I think of any position on the Patriots, that's their lowest need, is tackle. They do not need a tackle. They have 2 very, very good tackles, and they're both right in their prime of their career. So even with Brady, I mean, you could say quarterback is higher than tackle. Nope, quarterback is their position they have the least need for. But I think it's tackle because Brady is getting up there in age, so you could use a replacement. You can argue drafting a quarterback to be the heir apparent. You could argue drafting a quarterback to have a better backup than Mallett if you don't like Mallett. There's no arguing to take a tackle because they have 2 very good young tackles. At least take one early. I mean, of course you need backups for every position. But as far as taking a tackle early, I don't see that happening. You know, because of the youth and the skill and the money even that they've put into the 2 tackles they have. Inside guard and center, inside line offensive lineman, that's a different story. Could definitely see that as a potential need. Mankins is great. He makes a lot of money, so you're not going to change that position. But center and right guard, that's Connolly and Wendell. Definitely, they're starters, and they deserve to be starters, but neither of them are Pro Bowl guys, and so, you know, I can't pronounce his name, Sukafola or something like that from UCLA. If a guy like that is around when they pick, which he will probably be at the beginning of the second round, maybe with their second, because like I said, I think they're going to trade to 33, the first pick of the second round, but then they'll still have their pick, their late pick, their own second round pick. If he sticks that far, that could be a good pick there, but I wouldn't really want them to use their first pick on him, although I wouldn't rule that out either. So now we'll move on to defensive tackle. Now that is a position where I really do want to see them use their first pick in the draft, whether they stay in the first round or they go back to the early second. I think I do want to see them take a defensive tackle there. A lot of Lewis Nix, great defensive tackle, reminds me a lot of Vince Wilfork, huge power guy. I've watched him on film be double covered, 2 offensive linemen, and him 1-on-2, pushing them back. I mean, he didn't knock them down or anything, but the 2 linemen that were on him were backing up, and he was moving forward even though there were 2 on him. I mean, he is just huge, strong. He takes up 2 guys and moves them back. He's not that quick, obviously, but he's a real power guy. He's got a lot of strength, and I think he should go in the middle of the second. But a lot of mocks that I've seen, they have him still around when the Patriots pick. And, there's a lot more attention on one-gap type players like Aaron Donald, who the Patriots would never take because of his style of play. He's a speedy gap shooter. The Patriots like defensive linemen that play two-gap. They go one-on-one with an O-lineman and don't just shoot a gap, but control the O-lineman and stop the run by being responsible for two gaps. And that's not what type of player Aaron Donald is. He's a gap shooter. He's going to line up right in the gap and try to beat them off the ball and squeeze through it and use his speed and athleticism to get to the quarterback. Patriots wouldn't have any interest in a defensive tackle like that. Another one that they would have interest in is also from Notre Dame, Tuitt. I think it's Stephen Tuitt. He's like a Knicks Jr. to me, and he has a lot of experience at the 5 technique, but he's played some nose tackle as well in games where Nix was hurt, and he actually really stepped up and played real good in games where Nix was hurt that I've seen. And so either one of those two defensive tackles, they play the Patriots style, and they're both very, very talented. I think either one of them would make great first picks for the Patriots. And Tuitt definitely has a chance of still being around. I've only seen a few mocks where he even goes in the first. So I would love to see either of those two guys as the Patriots' first pick. I've seen a lot of mocks have the Patriots take Hegeman from Minnesota. I don't like him at all. I think he's not powerful. He uses his athleticism. He seems very skinny for a defensive lineman. He seems more to me like he would, if we were still using the 3-4, he could be a solid 5 technique, a defensive end in the 3-4. But because we use 4-3, I don't think, he would have to be a defensive tackle, and I don't think he's big enough to be a defensive tackle for Bill. So I don't think they have any interest in Hegeman. I have no interest in Hegeman. It's got to be one of those two Notre Dame guys. Tuitt or Nix. But anyways, I'm going to move on to another position, and that will be linebacker, a position where they have quality, but they need quantity. And so, man, his name escapes me right now, but he's from Stanford. He's a second-round type of guy. I don't know how I'd feel if they actually used a second-round pick on a linebacker, but if they did, it's a good guy. I'm trying to get his name. The guy from Stanford is, man. Well, I actually don't know. I don't have it written down, but he's number 44. Oh, that's why he's not from Stanford. Chris Borland from Wisconsin. That red and white got me. But yeah, Chris Borland from Wisconsin, not Stanford. He's the type of linebacker that, he's big as in he's muscular. He's actually short. He's 5'11". But he's the type of style that they don't have. Collins, Mayo, and Hightower are all like speed type linebackers. Great for today's NFL where you have to defend the pass. And they're also good against the run too. But to make up for the loss of Fletcher and Spikes, I think a guy like Chris Borland, that style of linebacker, and he's a real good one. Maybe there's one that I don't know about that you can get somewhere closer to the 4th round or 5th round because you really just need the guy for depth. But that style, the Spikes Fletcher style, is what I would want. And so now, move on to cornerback. Cornerback is a position that the Patriots might need for the future. They certainly don't need one this year because they have Revis, Browner, and Dennard. And Arrington. Not that I like Arrington, but they do. They put a lot of money in him. They have him signed long-term. So they really, for this year, they don't need a corner. But if you argue that Revis is potentially a 1-year signing, and Browner is also potentially a 1-year signing because of their age, They might go from being stacked at cornerback this year to only having Dennard next year. So I wouldn't rule out them taking one. Plus, they always take corners early, even when you don't think they need one. And if they do, I don't know. I don't think there are any from Rutgers this year. But yeah, speaking of Rutgers, that's another one, Allen. They really don't need a corner. I've been really surprised when they've taken corners. I'd be even more surprised if they took one early this year. But safety is my last position. It's the opposite. That is a position where it's one of my major positions in need, because they don't have the quality. They have the quantity, but they don't have the quality. And that's another one position where I would like to see, and think you might see them use the first pick on. You know, if they stay at 29, or if they decide to, you know, go to the early second. Whatever they do with it, I think their first pick, I would like to see it either be a defensive tackle, and I think it could be, or a safety. And a couple of safeties I'd be interested in are, my favorite safety in this draft is Jimmy Ward from Northern Illinois. He's very versatile. He's very good in coverage. He's covered tight ends. He sticks with them. And he's covered, you know, running backs, receivers, whoever he has to cover. And then, of course, and there's cornerbacks that are good in coverage, like Clinton Dix. But he's versatile because he could also be in the box. He's a good tackler. He's a very hard hitter. He's like, you know, Pryor, who's an in-the-box safety. So he's both of them combined. I think he's almost as good as coverage as Clinton Dix, and he's almost as good in the box as Pryor. So when you put them together in one player, I think he's the best safety in this draft, and I think he could very well be available in the Patriots pick because of the knocks on him. One of the knocks on him is his size. He's not tiny like Joyner from FSU, but he's pretty small. He's like 5'11". Patriots like those safeties 6'1", like Harmon, Tavon Wilson. So, and a lot of teams do. So that's one knock on him. And another knock on him is he played in the MAC. So as good as his film looks, it's tough to make out how do you think that's going to be in the NFL, because it's not so hard to dominate the MAC compared to dominating the Pac-10 or the Big Ten or the big, you know, SEC, whatever. So that's one. So those are the two knocks on Jimmy Ward, the conference and the size. And those knocks are good because that means he's actually going to be available in the Patriots pick, and I think they should take him. And then of course there's Deone Bucannon from Washington or Washington State, something like that. I think it's Washington State. It's with Drew Bledsoe's college. But he is very similar to Jimmy Ward. In my opinion, he does everything almost as well, just a little bit worse than Ward. But he doesn't have those two knocks. He's basically Jimmy Ward, a little bit worse, but without the knocks. He's 6'1", so he's got the size. And he's played in this, you know, the Pac-12, so real conference. So you know that the NFL is not going to be overwhelming and just a completely new speed to him. I mean, it will be because it's the NFL, but not as big a difference as it will be for Jimmy Ward. One thing about Deone Bucannon, I noticed his tackles seem more like linebacker, just textbook tackles, using his size, wrapping his arms around. Jimmy Ward's tackles are more like hits, like they kind of remind me of Rodney Harrison, like just crushing people and just like throwing his body at him. So, you know, take your pick between those guys, and Joyner from FSU is pretty good, but he's really small. I kind of like him more as a cornerback, but in as a position I don't think the Patriots need. But anyways, thanks for listening to Max Pat's podcast, and I'm going to do another one of these after the draft, and I'm going to talk about every single player they draft. So I hope you listen to me then, and goodbye.